put in a stream marker so I don't forget where the stream starts, and let's do this. Also, before I forget, turn on you. I did restart VS Code yesterday after the stream, which means we got the latest version of Rust Analyzer, which is going to be really nice because there's a really new awesome feature in it that is going to come really handy. Basically, auto pulling in or like telling you where the use statements. So instead of like having to write the thing out from memory and then doing the control dot and then making sure that you spelled whatever the module or anything else is correctly and then it pulls it in, it now just does it automatically for you, which is beautiful. All right, so with that, I also want to take a look at what are right. So I assigned myself an issue right before the stream started. Basically, we're going to do transition to different screen when player moves off screen. So if we take a look at what that means, specifically, if we look at the config.json, we'll notice that let's see, here's our map. We have pit 0 and then pits 1. So we have one pit in this level. And our start index is 0. So if I were to change this to 1 and start a game, so much more stuff to compile. I don't think I added anything after the stream. Sometimes I'm confused about like why it decides to do a full recompile. We should have our character right here with a pit. Now I can run over it and we don't fall through, which is, perhaps that's a different problem altogether. But we do have a pit. So what I want to have happen is I want to start at 0 here. I want to move to the right, which is going to move down in this array, and then we'll get to the pit. That's the goal. All right, so what does that mean for us? That means when our player moves off the screen, we're going to have to maybe send some kind of message. How do we know which one to display? We have to go with that. Resave view. My tea is finished brewing. All right. We have I think it was the map system. Okay, so here in jungle, we have source map. Okay, we're able to run this. Oh, and then we draw it out. And so it draws out like, hey, it draws out the bedrock, it draws out this. It then looks at the current index, the number of pits, and then draws a pit. Now, right now, it's just drawing a center pit because we only have one of them. And that's interesting. Okay, yeah, center pit. So when we create new, we're creating a new pit in the center. And so we can refactor all this later if we need to. But right now, I think the big thing to be aware of is that if I want to move to the next screen, we need to redraw we need to like tell the map to draw. So if we go back to our main scene, here's our map. And we're just drawing the map and we're drawing the player. So when the player moves to the next scene, well, off screen, I guess. When the player moves off screen, that means it's time for the map to change its location. Oh, and the player changes their location too. Now we could put this into game object here. This could also be part of main scene because like there's a bunch of things that happen when a player goes off screen, right? The player's location gets reset. So if they move off screen to the right, then that means that we move the player back over to the left and have them at the start. We delete the entire map and recreate it again. Except what really needs to be recreated here? The bedrock stays the same, the ground stays the same, the current index changes. So we need to have like maybe a method to like move off to the right. And so perhaps the physics system can take care of this for us. Perhaps the physics system, like it already has access to the location, so it can reset the player. The map, we could pass in a reference to the map too into the physics system. Now that being said, there's going to be some maps where we want to like dynamically add more objects, more game objects in. So like barrels, scorpions, snakes, things like that. And when we do that, we're gonna have to tell that they need to be added. So that's gonna be something of the map. So perhaps our main scene should handle this. And if that's the case, perhaps we should have some kind of messaging system where the physics system can tell the main scene, hey, we've transitioned scene, which will then tell the player to like change around. Because here, the way this would work is we update the player, we'd have to hand the map to the player too. I'm not sure that's the best of ideas. So if we have some kind of let's sort of imagine, like, play around with this. If I create a channel, we then have the game objects. So it would be the player physics system that would send a message, like send an event to the game object saying, hey, we've moved off screen to the right. Then, yes, we could reset the player right then based upon the physics system. And we might have to, because game object is, well, just a game object. It probably shouldn't have any specific like methods on it. Maybe you can have like a reset location method. It could. Or like a set location. That could work. It is also public on game objects, so that's not necessarily a problem for us to access. Let's sort of assume we're going to go with the channel system for right now. I'm also not sure exactly how we're going to test that, but let's ignore that for right now. We might be able to figure out the test. So for the player, we want a channel that we can hand the player physics system, and it will send a message, an event, when the player moves off the screen to the right. Well, that sounds like we also need an event too. So probably events. .rs. I don't think it needs to be pub. Okay, so we have events. And so for right now, pub enum events. Our first event that we're going to really think about is going to be player moved. So the player moved off screen to the right. So player moved off screen right. We might find a better way to name that later. So if I don't do anything else with this, but we just have this available, then in my physics systems, for the player physics system, if we create a channel, and when we create the new player physics system, we hand that channel in, then an update when they move off the screen, we can call the channel and name that. So I think this is testable. And for a physics system, we don't even need. I think this is a CI test allow it all as well. So let's try this. So test function CI test. This is player moves off screen right. All right, so we need to create a brand new physics system, which we do need a config for that. Okay. I guess we will need this to be mutable, just because we need to run that mutate. So, player physics system. I do notice Rust Analyzer is a little bit slower now that it's updated. I guess that's not too surprising. It's doing a lot more with each character that I put in. Okay, so once I need that, we do need to have a location for our update and a command. So probably every single time that we have them move, we care about them then checking to see if they if they moved, if like that channel happened. Now, I want to like pass in a channel for this. Let's also create a channel. So I forget exactly what it looks like. I think I want a sync channel, I believe. I don't remember anymore. I don't remember if I want a sync channel or not. I don't think I do. Oh wait, did that auto pull in? It did. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Didn't even look like it was going to do that, but it did. Okay, so channel, is that it? What do you return? Sender and receiver. So this is going to be the some kind of like event notifier. The problem is you can only have one sender and multiple receivers. Now I might want to look into a library that allows multiple senders and multiple receivers, and then just sort of clone and pass that all throughout. And then that could be a messaging system. I could do player off. So this could be send player off screen, and then receive player off screen equals this channel. And so I want to send into the player physics system this send player off screen. So you're upset now, so let's go fix that. Okay, so this is gonna be send. This is gonna be player off screen. Should still be like probably a send. And you are a channel? Oh no, you're a sender. And we're gonna have you send that event. Like that. Oh man, so much easier. Okay, so that makes you all of these other. Now we have to fix all the other tests. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. Send player off screen there. Okay, so that makes you happy again. Still have 3 errors, but that's actually outside of this file. But it is going to stop me from being able to actually run these tests. So we need to go fix that. All right, so for you, oh, it's in these other tests now. So where is this? This is in just game object. So we need to send player off screen, and then that. You're also a test here. And then the actual real thing. So this is also going to be important. Let's. No, not that. Okay. Channel. Find it. Yes, there we go. Now, player physics system. There you are. Also, yeah, okay, this is all fine. Why are you a comma? Because you're part of this, so we need you up there. Use of unstable library feature error iter. because of no semicolon. I also don't need chain. There we go. Okay, so we're back to working. Tons of warnings, but that's fine. That's because we're not actually using these. Okay, so we're in the player physics system. We send this in. We're then going to create a location for our player. We can have the player be at the very edge of the screen. Now, how do we know? How does the physics system know that the player is at the edge of the screen? And is that even going to be something that the physics system is in charge of? That's a good question. Or should the main scene be in charge of this? Because we could have the main scene actually watch the player and just say, hey, look, you just... Oh, see, that might make a little more sense. The main scene might want to do this on its update. Here. We have the player off the screen to the right. I actually like that a little bit more. The main scene can watch the player. Okay. So I use get so that I can just very easily... Also, that's in the moving to player. I forgot to update this. Well, it's no big deal. We need to just reset whatever we did. It's perfect. Let's come back here. Pull you and create a new branch. Okay, resetting. And restart you because we just changed all the code on you. Probably freaks out Rust Analyzer. We can have Rust, we can have the main scene watch the player. So if the player is off to the right, then it's going to basically handle, like, make changes to the map. It's going to do all that stuff. That makes a lot more sense. So open up here, scenes, main scene. So I believe we can actually do a test for this. So test player moving off map, off screen right. So we'll want to create a main scene. We have to give it the config, context, and map for this. So we can't, this can't be a CI test. So that config equals. Can you not find it? Oh, is it load? It's load. Oh, interesting. Okay. We're also going to need a context and a map. Okay, so that gives me a context. Oh, and we can make this a mutable reference right there. And then finally, we're going to need a map. Pass a reference to contact, config, and a context. Unwrap that. All right, so we have all the three things here. Next, I'm going to want to tell, so it's going to be an update with the player. So it's already going to create the player with a location in it. So I wonder if I can reach into the player through the tests and update that location. And then have it update. Because that might be interesting. So can I do that? Can I do... Oh, I haven't even created that. I just created the map. We need to create let mute main scene equals so config context and map. Okay, so can I do main scene dot player? Yeah, because you're just a dot player dot location dot x. Can I just set that to, like, I don't know, 55.0, just some arbitrary number. And you need to be because, okay, location is private, so I can't do that. Now I could potentially set have set location on game object. Which might be good. Or we could just make that public and we can just update it. Which I think that might be fine too. So in game objects, we'll go to mod here. Here's our location. We'll make that public. Okay, so then that does work. Now, when we're moving to the right, how does that command get generated? In update, we're just passing through a command. So if I reach in and I set our player all the way over to the right, I guess like even past the screen. So if we get the dimensions, so let width and height equals it doesn't know how to find that one. The drawable size, pass it into context. That gives us an F32 for the width. And so then I can say, if we're moving off to the right-hand side of the screen, this will just be, we'll set that to be the width. So we're past the right-hand edge of the screen. At this point in time, if we do an update with the command move right, so we can create our command. Move right. Then we can update the main scene. So main scene dot update. Okay, context. The button pressed is an option command. Okay, so button press is probably not the best name for it. But we can change that later. Basically, this is going to be a sum and our move right command. Our config So reference the config, and then the active scene. Interesting. Why do you care about that? In update. Right now it's not caring about that at all. So I wonder if it's even like why do we even have that? Oh, right, because if it suddenly is not the active scene, we don't want to display it anymore. That active scene equals active scene main. Oh, probably because we can pause. And update, you can return a game result. So we'll unwrap you. Okay, so that should now move the player off the screen to the right. Oh, expected mute scenes, active scene. Oh, like whatever the current scene is. I see. Because this might change itself. Got it. I understand now. I know. I see what I was doing. Okay, so once we have our main, we update our main scene. That should cause the player to move off the screen to the right. Then what happens? We want to now test that our map index, like the current index changes to be the next one. Well, really, we just need to call. We need to make sure that we're calling the next map command there. I'm not sure, like how much of this do I actually need to maybe just run it, make sure that it works, and that it doesn't error. Main scene probably is going to be in charge of changing the location of the player. That being said, how does it know the player's been changed? Like, how does it know the player's off screen now? It has to check to see if the player's location is past the screen, and it has the context to do that. And so if that happens, so it sounds to me like we want to, I don't necessarily need to run the update here. We can maybe have another function that instead check. Like it could run in chat, in update. It can check, is player off screen? If the player is off screen, it returns true or false, let's say. If I do something like that, we don't need to do an update. We need our main scene. We're going to need our width and our height for the drawable size. And we need to set that player location. But after this, we want to then run this function. So we're going to assert equal main scene dot is player off screen. Which direction off screen did they go? Because like if they're off screen, it's gonna be like left or right. We could check to see, okay, if players off screen left, and if they're not off screen left, are they off screen to the right? And if either of those are true, then these things happen. So is player off screen right? I don't know if this is a good idea. Good morning, stacking. And we want this to be true. Twitch never sent the notification. Oh no. Twitch is having issues recently. Although a lot of that is probably due to just the funness of COVID and more people watching, and also all the DMCA takedown notices and everything else going on. Okay, so function u self, and we're going to return a Boolean. Okay, if you are, which means that we need the context in order to know, are we off screen? So we'll need context here. Then we'll need to get the drawable size. So we don't need the height. Okay, so that gives us our width. And then once we get the drawable size, okay, so now we check to see our player's location. So we're going to return player.location. You should have access to that. Oh, it's self.player. Dot location dot x. Okay, so if your x is greater than or equal to width, return that. We do have two errors. Syntax error expected R curly. How did I miss a closing curly bracket there? Did I? Oh, I accidentally deleted too much, didn't I? Did I get the new REST analyzer? I did. We have the new REST analyzer. It's interesting. It could use a little bit of work because it's like it's gotten really slow now. Because well, it's checking so much stuff every single character. All right. Dota 2 attitude. Hello. Test time indeed. Okay, so this test should work. So if we run this, you should be happy. Yes, okay. Are there so many commands in my test? It's all prep. It's all prep work stuff. So basically, all of this stuff is just to create the main scene for me then to be able to run the command to test to see whether or not it's true. So then if I want to do the same exact thing, that's not good. It's a thing. So off screen to the left. This one is, we don't need the drawable size here. This will be, can't be 0. Well, we'll just say something like negative. Do we know what our width is in our config? I don't think we do. Yeah, I don't think we know what our width is. It might be something that's important. Oh, I don't have GitHub as a command. What I do have is repo, which apparently that's broken. That's cool. Give me 1 second and I'll fix that. SSH into chatbot. Blah. Okay. Come on, over there. Be secret. Okay. Want to find that thing. Go into there. Okay, now I can share this. We're going to sudo supervisor control. Always forget. Okay, this is chatbots. Restart chatbot. Now let's try it again. So it's bang repo. And there it goes. Perfect. Yeah, it's something in like, especially here, there's so much setup that needs to do because I'm passing through a bunch of like the context and everything else, and it's why we didn't do testing in some of the other projects, and I'm trying it out this time. I'm thinking that there might be an architecture change that I can do where the context doesn't need to be passed in everywhere, and maybe that can be centralized somewhere, and then everything else is just really simple. I haven't figured out how I want to do that yet, though. So that might be interesting. Oh yeah, and stacking is correct. That there's also the widget if you're on the desktop, if you're on like a normal desktop browser. If you're on mobile, it's not going to display there. Jitter Ted's course on writing more testable code, is that for Rust or is that just in general? It's in Java. Well, I'm fairly good at writing testable code in other languages. It's mostly in game development that I'm still trying to figure out how to do testable code that doesn't require like passing the context and some config and all sorts of other stuff around. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So if it's not necessarily focused towards game development, I'm not going to like, because I do test-driven development without this entire setup stuff in JavaScript all the time at my day job. It's mostly this stuff that I'm having trouble with. And it's probably just more of Rust is slightly different for me. Okay, so off screen to the left, we're going over here. Is player off screen left? And you should be true. I suppose we could test to see if you're off screen to the right or not off screen. Might be a good idea. Oh, we will need the context. Tests write in production code. I'm not sure what you mean. The problem with unit testing in game dev and why it's not done in AAA companies is because you need to mock player and map, and that's exactly what I'm having problems with here. Is like you have to mock the player, you have to mock all this stuff, and like pass that in, and it's interesting, but it's I mean, and it is helping with refactoring a lot, so I do like it, but it's like anything that's like actually drawing to the screen makes it really hard for testing, because like I can't even like boot the app without that set it up. All right, so what are we doing here? Passing the context. Okay, so we have you. Okay, so Boolean that. Now, do I even need this? I don't. I don't actually need the context here in this player's off screen to the left, do I? Because we can just check. We know that 0 is the left of the screen. So I want to be able to do return self.player.location. Now, here's the thing, is now we need a width for our player. So we need to go into our mod for game objects. We don't have a width. Yeah, I haven't fully figured out dependency injection for Rust either. Okay, so we need width for our player and probably height eventually in order to like really understand like where things are, like what our width is. Okay, so if I need a width here, so let's come back down to here. So self.player location dot width is, yeah, we agree that this is a code design problem and kind of a Rust problem. It's together, and so like I guess what I know is I know how to do dependency injection for testing in like a language like JavaScript or Python. What I don't know is how to do it properly in Rust in game development. So anyways, that is something that I'm trying to think about, and I'm gonna continue to sort of like churn on until I figure it out. And I think like Rust is still new enough that I don't see too many like really good resources for learning that in Rust. And Rust is a different enough language that the lessons for other languages are only like kind of applicable. So yeah, but I am going to figure it out. I'm not going to give up. Every project that I do, I'm getting closer and closer to like an optimal architecture. At least I think we are. Like, to note, our projects are taking less and less time every time I run them, which I think is the it's the sign of actually doing better and improving. Okay, so self.player.location.width. So this is obviously a problem because I don't have width on here. So let's actually do this as a to-do. You're not going to take in context. That means in our mod for game object, we can run a test for this. When we create a new game object, we should have a width on it. All streamers you watch that switch to Rust, the biggest swing is how to design code in Rust and the borrow checker from mocking other languages. Yeah, I agree with that. That it's things. It's a big change, and it's the module system and like architecture and like how to store things and turn like things are fast enough, like without needing to like do any tricks to try to make them faster. At least for the kind of code that I'm writing. I'm not really writing systems level code. I'm not writing it, like it doesn't have to be super fast. Even though I'm writing games, it seems to be fast enough on its own. It's only like when I'm trying to render, hey, let's render like 1,000 text things all like in one frame. It's like, that doesn't work. Most of them try to mock C++ and then fight with a borrow checker and then get really defeated at first. I can see that. Even coming from a systems administration background where at most it was a tiny bit of C and a lot of shell scripting, I still fought against the borrow checker. I still fight against it every once in a while. Although more and more often I'm sort of seeing what's going to happen before I do it. Okay, so create an empty game object. We have to create, when we create an empty game object, regardless, it's creating a player in here. No, it doesn't. Game objects are on their own. So we want a game object to have a width and a height, which means we want it to have that taken in and like pass those in. So when we create an empty game object, we want to pass in a width and a height to it. Something like this. We want like 50.0, and let's actually create this here. Do let width equals like 50.0, let height equals 50.0, and then this would be width and height. We unwrap that, we get our game object, and assert object. Okay, so it's asserting that our location is right, and we can also assert equal that the game object dot width is equal to width. Assert equal that game object dot height is equal to height. I believe so. I think so. Now the width and height should be set in our config.json. So then that will be controlled through there. So I don't have to like actually hard code those in, but in this case, we can test them with hard coded in the test. Because just whatever we set them to be, they should be fine. So now to make this pass, we need to take in width and height in here. So game object new, we'll do width, and that's going to be an F32, and height, it's going to be an F32. So that makes part of these pass, but now we need to add in those. So struct game object, have a width, which is an F32, and a height, which is an F32. And then we need to set these in. So width, height. It's difficult for you to refactor this because you don't know Rust. Yeah, I can imagine that. It's difficult to sort of play around with languages that aren't familiar yet. Especially Rust. Rust is a fickle beast. Perhaps like after this, I might like revisit that tutorial that I started making and then stopped because I ran out of time for the other game that I was making. And then with that will be a non-game and much more testable. We can play around with test-driven development for that and using dependency injection and all sorts of cool stuff for that. That might be a good idea. It can be like a combination tutorial series. Okay, so the tests will hopefully work with that. Now for you, we need a width and a height for each of these. So testing, drawing, we don't really care about these. So new, we need to pass in like just some number, like 10.0, 10.0. Like who cares? And same thing here. Okay, and then also when we create it for real in a main scene, so the player, this is where we need to come into our config and actually set what is our player. So I want a player width. Player width is going to be, we need to look at our image. I think it's 160 by 160. I vaguely remember that that's what this image is. Actually, you know what? I have it in here. In resources, we can take a look at our player standing, and this is, yeah, 160 by 160. Okay, so 160, and then player height, which I'll do up here. It's gonna be 160.0. We need, okay, player width and player height now need to be brought in. So that's gonna be our mod into config. F32. F32. Oh, why isn't it just let player equals stuff? Where? Let player equals game object new stuff. Oh, you mean like, why don't I create a, new is the constructor that I wrote. Oh, are you talking about like, why don't I turn this into like an object of some kind to pass that in? So I don't have to like pass these in separately. All right, so then this is gonna be config.player width. And don't have it coupled to game object. Config.player height. Okay, so there's that we pass in. Okay, that should be happier. Ooh, strict comparison, right. In the main scene, we're comparing, where is that happening? It's telling me in a macro right here. Okay, yeah, we're checking this, so we need to test that. Don't have it coupled to game object. Well, game object needs to track all of that stuff internally for itself. I guess I don't understand like how in game object, like it needs to know its location. It needs to have like its draw system and a physics system. Well, I'm creating a new game object. How can I couldn't pass in a game object before I create it. Or are you talking about using it like a builder pattern where I create an empty game object? All of these are options, and then I like sort of update, like add them in after the fact. That actually might be a really good idea. That could potentially make things a lot easier to test, because I don't have to create a bunch of stuff that I don't need using like a builder pattern. Okay, so I need to add, I think it's allow, and then the lint is Clippy float compare. I think it's that one. So it allows that. Okay, so no errors anymore. This is we would put a player on game object. Well, player is a game object, and then we're gonna have like barrels that are game objects and like rope swings that are game objects. That too. Okay, so then we should be able to run this test. Clippy is yelling at me because I'm comparing floats together. So, I'm passing in 50.0 and 50.0 and saying, hey, you can't compare floats. What if they're off by like 0.0000001? That will be a false. But in this case, because I'm setting them equally to that, I'm saying like, hey, just quiet down, Clippy. It's okay. Yeah, I know, not all floats are equal. And if I did float math, I can totally see why I would that might be a problem. If I said like, okay, multiply these things together and then say, is it this? Well, Clippy was like, that might not be exactly the same because float math. Okay, so we did that. Now we can come back to our main scene and finish this test. So what happened to this? To do, okay. So is player off screen left? If I run your test, this will fail because we haven't implemented it yet. And now we can say self.player. We want the right-hand edge past of the player's location plus, okay, so self.player.location.x plus self.player.width. That has to be less than or equal to 0.0. And width is private, so we need to head over back to game objects and make width public. That makes you happier, and we can redo this test. Left is false, right is true. Okay, so why? Because I set our width to just minus 50, and if our width is 160, we're not off screen yet. So we have a config here. We can just set ourselves to config.playerWidth. And then that should work. Now, are we running into problems because of float math? Let's like plus 1.0. Okay, that should be off screen then. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Location. I want you to be minus. So you're in the negatives there. See if this works. There we go. Okay, so that works. So when you're negative off screen, so just moved off screen, then this will return true. And I suppose that we can do the exact same test here, but in the opposite. So we can say test player moving off screen, test player not moving off screen right, and not moving off screen left. These should already pass for us. So this one is player.location x equals, we'll just do something on screen. It's like 50.0 and 50.0. This should be fine. In fact, having the location be the default should be fine. I don't have to change that at all. And then we want you to be false and false. So cargo test. I'm going to test everything here. Heads up, there's a lot of flashing on the screens when I run this test. So just be forewarned. And they all pass. All right, so everything passes there. Okay, so we have we now have our that function to determine if we're off screen. When we go off screen, we want to change the map index. You can confirm that was some flashing. I know it's I don't know how to make sure that it like shows like just black, because if they're not white flashes, I don't think that's as big of a deal if they're like just black windows that pop up. Just it's a thing. Okay, so that means for our map. Okay, so when we go off screen, we want to. So essentially, this is going to be in our main scene in update. After we update the player, we'll now be able to check to see, okay, so if self dot is player off screen left, for example. If we're off screen to the left, then we now want to update the map index one to the left. We can't do that right now because we don't have any map to go there. So maybe left is the wrong one to do. Maybe we should do right. Okay, so if we're off screen to the right, then the test code is in the same file as the running code. Yes, it is. That's one of the features of Rust. And so all of this stuff, when I have this config test, what that means is this code is only compiled and added in when in test mode. Otherwise, it's not compiled. It's not added to the binary. I actually like it a lot. Having like all the stuff together in one context things. Although that's like, I've grown into liking that more and more after working on a lot of like a Vue code, where you have like the template and then the JavaScript and the CSS all in one file for like front end stuff. Oh man, I love not having to context switch by switching files constantly. Yeah, no, it's like these are the things that like you get used to in Rust. Now, we don't have to do that. You could write your test files like all separate. That's the other thing stacking is, the theory is if it's in a different location, people don't do it. I agree with that as well. But I think it allows for very tightly, this is the file, this is where all the tests are, this is where the code is, it's all there. Yeah, it's a design decision. I could see where it doesn't force you to do it, though. I think, though, most people do it. Okay, self is player off screen right. Okay, so if we're off screen to the right, we want to now tell the map to change our current index to go to the right. That's the thing. Like, can we go off screen to the right? In this map, I guess, we're just looking currently at the config for that. So if we look at our config, here's our map. So we're starting here, and we want to move here. I think you want the concept of a player. I have a player. It's a game object. Oh, and something that might be helpful in some of the design decisions that I've been making. I've been using. Oh, wrong one. I've been using Game Programming Patterns, this book, as a sort of like a guideline, and we went through it on stream, and came up with some architecture that we are not 100%, but a bunch of it we're using here in the game. So that might help sort of like explain some of the design decisions. Okay, so we need to determine where we are. Well, we know where we are. We're in the current index. If the current index is, 0, then we can't move to the left anymore. So we should probably not allow ourselves to move to the left. If the current index is the length of the map -1, we shouldn't move to the right anymore. But otherwise, we want to increase the current index. So that sounds like expected 1 argument found 0. Right, we have to pass into context. So you're happy here. We'll have the probably like an else if. Self dot is player off screen left, and do that. Okay, so I'll fill these in. This if has identical block. Oh, because I haven't I'm not doing them. Fine, I'll comment it out. Clippy, thank you for making me a better programmer. Okay, so in our map, we're gonna want some tests here. So mod test. Then instead of that, we're gonna use super that. Then test. Okay, function. This is gonna be moving index, like changing our index. Like move screen right, move screen left. So change index, maybe not change index. This could be like move. Can I might be able to do this as a CI test. Okay, CI test, move right. All right, so we need to create a new map for this. We need to pass in a config and a context for that. So that config equals config load, I guess. Okay, unwrap you. Let context, don't care about you. Initialize. Pass in a reference to config, unwrap you. Okay, so we have those. Now we can create our map. Equals. You are map new. Our config and our context. Unwrap you, and then you need to be mutable there. All right, so that gives us our map. So now we can actually do our test here. We want to run map move right, and since we initialize on index 1, that should allow us to move right. So how do I want this to work? I probably want this to return a result, and the results. I guess, like, how do I want this to work in general? If I run the game, if I move off to the right-hand side, and there's no right to go to, do I want it to sort of like stay here? Like I can't, it's just like, oh, well, I can't move any more to the right. I probably want to actually change, it would go to the next scene, yeah. What if there is no next scene though? Now I know that in Pitfall, it was a random number generated, so it was just like an infinite map. I think that's true. I think it was an infinite map. I might be wrong. I don't remember anymore. I bet I could go online and find those maps. If I don't have a map, maybe like eventually we want it to like just randomly generate one. But right now, if I don't have one mapped out, I probably just don't want it to do anything. So we attempt to move right. Maybe put a wall on the right side and implement collisions. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that could be good. Could put a wall here. We need to implement collisions for walls to go down here. Yeah, so we could put a wall feature here. So if it's the last map. Okay. So we are gonna have a jump, but hopefully I'll make it so we can't jump out of there. It'll probably crash if we actually leave the map. Okay, so if we move right, what do I want to have happen? Our current index has to increment by 1. So we're gonna assert equal that map dot current index is now equal to map dot current index plus 1. Right, so we're gonna do map dot move right, something like that. And let's make this mutable so I can actually do this. Implement map. Hub function, move right. Mute self. We don't then have to return anything, do we? This is... So if I do that, I should be able to run this test. And we'll get a fail. Then self dot current index plus equals to 1. All right, what happened? Left is 1, right is 2. I mean, we know that we, okay, this should be map dot config dot start index plus 1. That's what it should really be. Okay, so that passes. If we move left, maybe we won't do that for right now. Okay, so if we move right, our current index goes up by 1. I mean, is that all I care about? I would think so. So now that I have that, let's go back to our main scene. If player is off screen to the right, great, this is an update. If player's off screen to the right, let's just do this one at a time. If self dot is player off screen right, pass it in the context. Then we're going to do self dot map dot move right. Now, the player is still going to be off the screen to the right. So we also have to update the player to go like all the way to the left. So we'd have to do like self dot player dot location dot x equals, I don't know, probably like our starting location on the left. Maybe even 0.0. If I just do that and we run this game, what is it going to look like? Is it going to run? Let's see. None, no such luck. Okay, so what happened here? Nothing. Okay, so wait, where did I put this? I put this in new. Wait a second. Where did I put my if? I put it in draw. You need to go in update. Update the player. Then we can check to see if we're off screen to the right, and we need a context. I mean, that should still have worked, I think. Let's see. I don't think it's working the way I expect it to. So our player X location is moving to the right because we're using that location to draw everything out. So that's working. Let's see. What's going on here? Is this ever firing? We can do a debug. Am I firing? Okay, so save you, rerun you. No is the answer. Okay. I wonder, do I need to like just move farther off? Is my math wrong? Now, one way I can do this so that you can see, I'm going to move it off screen. Then move you completely right and continue moving. My math is wrong. Hey, and look at that. We moved on to this other scene. Okay. So my math is horrifically wrong. I had to move way more to the right, like past the screen. So that's not great. Peyton Rules is raiding with a party of 22. I have to wait until advertisements. Because fun. Welcome. Anybody who is not getting those advertisements. Peyton Rules, welcome. Thank you so much for the raid. How's your stream? You're working on your to-do app with iOS and Rust and Godot? Fun, almost have a teensy amount of Objective-C++ talking back to Rust. Ooh, that actually sounds really interesting. And that's not a typo, Objective-C++. Man, I didn't even think about that. Objective-C++ is a real thing. I'm sorry. Not even Swift? Like, you have to use Objective-C++? Is that an Apple thing? Or is that just some weird thing that somebody decided they needed to make? Oh, you bet it's for FF5 bindings. It's an old Apple thing. Since you're using the Godot headers, and those are in C++, I needed to use Objective-C++. Oh, man. Wow, and they're still supported, too. That's crazy. You probably could write it in Swift with some magic. I mean, isn't that like how most of Apple programming is? Just magic? Although that being said, like I feel like a lot of programming these days, we're just magicians working magic, and sometimes it works. Okay, so CD. I did this one. You look up Objective-C++. I wonder if it's as bad as normal Objective-C. I mean, why would you do that to yourself? We already have as, yeah. I tried to program in Objective-C once, and that actually made me not want to program any Apple stuff, and like to the point where I didn't even look at Swift, even though I know it's immensely better syntax-wise. Yo, dog, I heard you like brackets, so I put brackets inside your brackets. It's worse stacking. Oh no, it can't be worse. Anyways, everyone, we have a fun thing we do here when we get rated. We play the Get the Streamer game, and this is a game where in chat you're gonna run commands like hash sword, hash fire, hash heart, hash random, and I'm gonna try to avoid all those things being dropped on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this binary now. Oh, you know what? I had to update it because I updated Rust. That's why I have to rebuild everything. And it's hopefully a fun game. And sort of like a nice way to celebrate that you're all coming in. We're gonna play something together. I should keep an exe on hand. I know, I have it. I should really add in a shortcut on my on the taskbar, and then I can just click on it and start it. Like, I have the executable. I don't know why I don't just run it. It's one of those things where I just like need to do that. I am glad that I have like a modern desktop that can compile these things pretty quickly, even on release mode. But all right, here we go. here are all the list of the commands that you can run and my lives, and I'm gonna see what I can do to not die right away. You just waiting for that 5900 to go and stop. Oh yeah, that's gonna be a pretty big deal. If we get rated enough, I'll get really good at this game, and then maybe can survive the entire 120 seconds. Hello, Utsby! Oh man, I had to take a hit there. Oh man, down to one. No! And I died. And with stacking with 42 points. But Utsby is still in the lead overall with 180. Anyways, that's a fun thing we like to do when we get rated. So thank you everybody for participating in that. Now what we're doing for like the main project today is we're building a Pitfall clone in Rust and GGEZ as the game language, and I'm trying to do a lot of test-driven development. It's been okay so far. So we just realized when I move off screen to the right, I want to move on to the next page. Unfortunately, my math is way wrong. So in our main scene, test our player moving off screen to the right. This is incorrect. So let's see, off screen to the right. This is true. And yes, that's fine, but our math is way wrong. So main scene, player location dot x. What I want to do is figure out, okay, so if our player location dot x is equal to the width of the screen, one would think that would work. Off screen to the right, set the player location x is greater than or equal to width. I would think that should work. I'm kind of curious now. Is where I'm drawing the player just not where it's actually existing? I know this is gonna spam the screen, but let's try debugging our self.player.location and see where they are. Okay, so I see 150, 600, and that looks about right. And I move over to the right-hand side, and that's 1790. Oh, I know why. The problem that we have here is the resolution is different Like the actual resolution is different. We need to use the config resolution, which, yeah, we need to use the config resolution. So what does that mean? Instead of passing in the context, we need to pass in the config. And then this can be self.playerLocation.x is greater than or equal to config.resolutionx. That's what I need to do. So then, let's see. When we call you, is player off screen to the right? We'll pass in, so instead of the context, pass in the config. And down here, off screen to the right, pass in a reference to the config. This drawable size is completely, like, this isn't really helpful here. We want to set you to be the config.resolutionx. Left should be, that should be fine. Not moving off to the right. That should be, you don't need you. Config. Okay, so that should all be fine still. So, okay, now if I cargo run this, does it work? Yes, it's much less off. I have to go off. Now, I think that's because I'm a square for the player, and that's an issue because we're the same high as the same wide, and that's clearly not a very good look for our player here. We could probably update the actual image, and that would be better, to be the same as our width and height here. I am Hardliner, subscribed at a tier 1 subscription. Thank you so much, Hardliner. And you're on a two-month streak too. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see. So if I want to fix this, I need to change our image. So here's our jungle player standing. Look at this. Look how much space there is to the left and right. I really want to make this like much smaller in between. Now, if I do that, we're also gonna have to fix this. Just that's an issue. Potentially, we can be aware of the width of the player. He needs to go into, well, the player's fine. The player's fine. It's the space around the player that's not fine. So how do I want to fix this? I can do math. Did the character drink a potion of feet spaghettification? Yes. I mean, I am clearly a master of pixel art animation. Hence why it looks like he's broken his legs in almost every single animation graphic here. I was trying to look at like tutorials for how to do this, and every tutorial was like, okay, first of all, draw your character. I'm like, well, you lost me there because I don't know how to draw the character. You're looking at the original Pitfall and it looks like that. I actually modeled this after the original Pitfall, and I added like a couple extra ones Yeah, it does look like that. I wish I could figure out how to make it look better, but I don't know how yet. We'll get there. Okay, so I need to cut this down a lot. In my game, the player is still a square, so you can be proud of what you got. I used to do that all the time, is just make them squares. And then now I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I have to like have some kind of animation. So I've been forcing myself to learn this. Now, I'm really curious, if I cut this down, what would this end up looking like? And we'll break everything else. So let's go ahead and open up. You know what? I actually have all of this right here. Here's our standing player. Now, how do I change this? Frame, sprite size, canvas size. Oh, I get to do this. I mean, that works. Can you just cut them down into code by subtraction of the extra space? Yes. I suggest you stop thinking of game positions and dimensions in pixel terms. The actual size of the image shouldn't be defining the object in your world. I've been having trouble doing that, like mentally. I haven't figured out how to think in that way yet. Maybe you're right, Stacking. Maybe what we can do is say, like, look, we know right here. Well, how do I know where that is, right? The math is the box starting right here in the center, in like the top left. And so I would need to calculate as soon as, not this part, but this part reaches. And I could put into the, I can throw into the config like the extra space around. But I don't think I can just like say, hey, your size is, well, that might be interesting. I probably could have the width be very small and then see if I could render from the center. So let's say my player width is not 160. Let's say it's like maybe even, say I do half of that. What is this going to look like when it moves off screen? Is it going to look like immediately off or just slightly? Still, okay, so still like the player width is still a bunch, like it might even be like 40. I mean, that doesn't look bad. Oh, I don't have move right yet. It doesn't look terrible. Now I could do like space around. That feels like a pretty hacky. Like if I calculate the space around the player that we don't care about, I don't even know how to measure that right now. I don't have like a ruler. It might be helpful for you to render a dot for the location and a rectangle for the dimensions over the image so you can visualize how the offsetting is working. That's a really good idea. So how do we do this? For our game object, it'd be our player draw system. We're currently drawing like the player itself. We could also draw so oh, that's a test. Okay, so here's our draw for the player draw system. Graphics image, let's just do. Okay, so if I do a rectangle around the full, do like a red rectangle around the full image. All right, so first of all, I'm gonna change the U back to 160. So we can create our rectangle here. So actually I could probably just draw this all together. So graphics. Oh, we need to create a mesh for it. Never mind. Let border equals, it's gonna be a mesh builder new dot rectangle. Okay, so our mode is gonna be, it's gonna be a fill fill mode. Oh, it's draw mode. Oh, come on. Oh, I don't have that. Okay, so fine. GGZ, graphics, draw mode. I don't want fill, I want stroke. Yeah, stroke. Width, let's just do like, let's try 1.0 pixels. Our bounds, so this is gonna be our new rect. Okay, so X and a Y. So since we're creating this every single time, this can be based upon where this is, where this actually is. This can be in the player location. We have that right here. So location.x, location.y. The width and the height is, we don't have that in here. That means we need to pass in the width and the height to get, just to be able to do this. Oh, we do have the config. So I can just use the config for right now. Config dot player width, config dot player height. So that gives me the rectangle, then the color. Color, new. Let's just do solid red. Oh, this is not true. We need to then build you, pass into context. Then I can do that. All right, that gives us our border, and then we can draw the border. So graphics, draw, context, border, and draw param, new. I don't think I need to do anything crazy there. So if I do that, there's our player. So if we move this over, so to begin with, we would assume that this, yeah, okay, so that works. That moves it off the screen exactly there. So if we update our config to have player width be like half of that, I think our problem is going to be the offset. We need a player offset then. Yeah, because look at this. We now need to shift this over to the right. So we now need an offset by like half of this amount. So how do I want to do that? Probably we can have the player width. Maybe this doesn't have to be something in the config. If I have the player location, I think is fine. This might be helpful to have the player location be in the center of the image, and then our essentially draw gets shifted over by half of the width. So if I were to do something like that, we should be able to see that in our player draw system. When we create our rectangle, if we have our location in the center, that would be our image. Okay, so what are you doing? Destination, location X, location Y. So you start in like the top left and right. If I move you over by half of the width, so the location X would be plus half of the width. So that would be config dot player width divided by 2.0. And so if I did that, and then down here updated U2, so location X, I mean, is that true? Or because we want the location in the center. I feel like I need to draw this out. I can do that. Give me a second. Give me a second. I need to erase the white. Hey, Zilby. Okay, where? Draw the location as a dot. It'll help you get this straight in your head. It will take you a while for it to become natural. Yeah, I can imagine. Also, we have a Zilby here. Or just for a second, Zilby. No. Never mind. He just walked out of the room. Just came in just to say hi. Okay, so draw the location as a dot. So a dot in the center. Render a dot for location and a rectangle for the dimensions over the image. Okay, so we have the rectangle for the dimensions over the image. Hold on, let me put our config back to 160 again. And then if I want a dot here, center dot, mesh builder, new circle. Okay, so our mode is going to be a draw mode. Apparently you don't know how to pull that in. This is going to be fill. The location of where I want to put this. So point to new. This needs to be the location plus half the width. Okay, so that's going to be location.x plus config.player width divided by 2. And then the y is going to be location.y plus config.player height divided by 2.0. The radius, let's do like a 5.0 radius. A tolerance is like 0.1. And a color. Oh, hey, kitty. There's those purrs. Let me update my camera position. Okay, so, and then our color is going to be a color new, and we can make this red as well. Okay, so build context question mark that, and then we'll draw you. Okay, so context, a reference to the center dot, and then draw param new. Okay, let's try this. Well, that's, wait a second. Am I just completely wrong with this? No, that's okay. That's exactly what's happening. Oh, that's weird. Oh, wait a second. I I screwed up you first, didn't I? I want you to not do this. Okay, then we'll back to center. There we go. Okay, so here's our character in the center. And so if I reduce our width in half, it needs to be around the center. So it needs to reduce like the width on the left-hand side and the right-hand side evenly. So if I change, because the player location is based upon this spot right here. I almost feel like I need an image width and an image height, and then a player width and a player height. Or an offset. But probably like a, which one? Do I want an offset or an image width and image height? I feel like the image width and image height probably is best. Decorrelate gameplay width from sprite width. Okay. Yeah. It's a good idea. Also, hello, Rizix. I like that. Okay, so what we can do is in our config, we have our player height and player width. We can also do player image. So we have this player standing image. We probably also want to do, let's move this. I'm slowly like starting to reorder some of these. And to be like more alphabetical in here, just so it could be easy to find them. So player standing image, and I can do player standing image size, which could be, I mean, I could just make it an array, but we could also just do player standing image player standing image width. So you're 160.0. Player standing image height. You're 160.0. Player height would be 160.0. That'd be fine for that because it pretty much takes up that full screen. But our player width should be something like 80. Then I want the image height and the image width. Okay, so based upon the location of where I am, we need to like then draw this. So how's that going to work for me? I want to take our location. So this is where I potentially can go over to our whiteboard. Oh, except you just don't load it all anymore. I even have it. What happened to my oh, my camera's over here now. Like that. And you be cat cam. Be big. Also, just for this, I'm turning the gain way up. So hopefully you should be able to hear this a lot easier. I have to speak really quietly when I'm close to it. But all right, so we have the player. We'll just do, here's our lovely player. The image is like this. I know he's not centered at, that's not right. I have the center is here. Then what? If I have the player location starting here, and essentially this is the rectangle of the player location. The stick figure art is what you sub for. So if I have this, but it's still the center of this location, then I can take the image width, divide that by half, move to the left, and then divide that by half the height and move that up, and that's where I start drawing the image from. I think that's correct. So it sounds to me like I want to put my image location, like my player width, and my player location should probably be the center point. Like not here because the math gets weird, but here could be the location, X and Y. And then I could have width and height as properties for that. And then that's the player width and height, which I'll need for collision detection. But then we'll have the image width and height, which can use based upon that location there. Okay. I think that's what I want to go with. I'm getting there. All right. All right, well, first of all, bring that gain all the way back down again. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm improving. I'm getting better. All right, cat cam. Let's bring this back down. Put this like that as a reference. There's a chain of concepts here. You have the game object position, then things that are attached to that position with an offset, collision, shapes, meshes, sprites, etc. Yeah, this is the first time I'm really doing I'm getting more complicated with what I'm doing here. So thank you so much, Utsby, for the help with this. This is very helpful. But that's what we're doing. Every game we learn something new and we get better. Let's see. I'm still blocking some of the code. That should be good enough. Okay, so if I want my location to be the center of the player, how would I end up doing that right now? That means nobody really cares about that right now except the draw. So we have the player height 160, the player width is 80. That should be fine. Then to get the center location, here's that player starting X and Y. I'm gonna probably want to like change this around a little bit. But if right now I don't do anything with that, let's say I don't even draw the player. Although I probably could for right now. If I want to start drawing the center location of the player, I think we have that right now, right? Where I'm drawing the border. If we start with, okay, so location dot x. Okay, so we're gonna do this around the center. Location dot x minus half of the width for the x here. So minus config dot player width divided by 2. Location dot y minus dot player height divided by 2.0. Okay, that becomes the top left corner. And then we have the player width and the player height. Okay. So that becomes our rectangle. The center dot just becomes location x and location y. And that's all I care about there. So let's draw this out now. Let's see how this looks. There we go. Okay, so that's our location of our player. And so now I want to put that location exactly where I want them to be. So down by a bit. So what is that going to look like? Our config.json, our player starting y. Let's do this like 700. Maybe a little bit up, like 650 or 675. Okay, so I think that's a good y, and we can leave that as the good x there. Now I want to draw the player, the image based upon the center location. So in our draw system here, our location.x, we want to now shift this to the left by half of the config.player width divided by 2, and then the y minus config.player height divided by 2. Okay, so if I do that, not exactly there, but I have to now take into account that it's not the player width, it's the image width and the image height. So in our config.json, we now have this player standing image height and a player standing image width. Okay, so let's go update this. So player F32. F32. Okay. Then I can now use this over in here. So instead of subtracting by our player width, let's subtract by half of our player standing width and our player image height. And that puts us right here. So now if I move off screen, instantaneously off screen. Oh man, thank you so much, Utspi. That's really awesome. I like that. Cool beans. Yeah, no, that is really awesome. So we shifted over to having our player location by the center, and I think that's a really good lesson for us to record down. So I don't even have like a game development. Let's add in game dev MD game dev. So game objects positioning. We want to have the positions of the game objects be based on the center of the object. It allows us to this allows us to have the width and height of the game object be separate. How do I word wrap? This allows us to have the width and height of the game object be separate from the image width and height. Okay, so from the image width and height, this will allow for better collision detection. So what this might end up looking like is we have a struct game object with a width of like F32 and a height of an F32. Now, I don't know if we need to, because not everything is going to have a, so let's see, this will be center position, center width, center, oh wait, no, this is the full, okay, this is the full width, the game object is the full height of the game object. Okay, so we have the full width and the full height, but then the positioning, so the location is going to be a point to F32, and we're going to say this is going to be the center position of the game object in the world. So then when we go to draw, we're going to have it draw the image based upon the image height and the image width. Okay, so we'd want like a game the draw system for the game object would then take in the game object width, height, and location. At some point, you might want to separate the height width you have there into collision shape or bounding box, but best not confuse matters for now. And I did that in the last game. I actually used the GGEZ rect object as just the full location, which was a combination of the width, height, and location. But that had benefits and negatives. But yeah, like that might be good for us to like figure that out in the future. Okay, so the draw system for game object would then take in the game object with height and location. As well as the image that it. Oh no, okay, so it knows image when it draws. It should know the image that it is going to use and the image's width and height. That means you can have any number of collision shapes attached with their own offsets and moving around with animations. Yeah, I haven't like done anything. We've been very, very simple with our collision objects and shapes so far. That would be interesting to do like non-rectangles someday or non-circles. And then I think that's when we're going to run into that issue. That means that to display the... See, what is it? To display the game object image correctly, we would need to set the image location thusly. So this is where we'd have our hub function draw itself. We have this config. It's like this isn't. We don't really care about this. This is going to be our draw params. So it's going to be our draw that draw param equals param new dest. Okay, and this is where we give our location. So our location dot x minus image image width divided by 2.0 location dot y minus image height divided by 2.0. And that's pretty much that. And so that will help us like in the future when we go to like build this again, sort of like position things properly. We're positioned by the center. All right, so we captured that little bit of information and knowledge. Again, thank you so much, Utsby, for this. This has been really helpful for me, sort of like to understand how these, like how games and getting more and more complex and being able to do more things. It's good. Thank you so much. All right, so with that being said, we're now able to move to the right. Let's make ourselves move to the left, and we'll go back to the first. It's a whole new world for me too. Like I think I've been doing this type of game dev for like what, a year now. I've made little games in like previous like couple years ago. Just throughout my life, every once in a while, I make a little tiny game for me to play or my friends to play, but they were never as complicated as this. They were always just like one screen, little like click that and move around. They were basic websites. I feel like I'm actually getting into complex game design and game dev, even though like I'm still back in the 1980s or 70s even of game dev complexity. That's a lot better than what I was doing before, which is just always Pong. Just Pong over and over and over again. That's what I was doing. But I've broken out. Past breakout even. Okay. So let's now move left. Pong was the same era. It's crazy to me that they went from like, oh man, we can move things across the screen to now we can have a full map and everything else. That was like, it shows the evolution of game design and game dev was like already starting to go up by a crazy amount even then. Okay, so given this, I now want to go back to our main scene. And up here, if we're off screen to the left, in update. So if we're off screen to the right, we don't need this as I'm firing anymore. We know that we're firing. We move to the right. And then we reset our player location. Else, if self dot is player off screen left, I think Pong was a decade earlier than Pitfall. Was Pong 60s? Pong's might have been 60s and Pitfall was 70s. Okay, so if the player's off screen to the left, now we want to have the map move to the left. So self.map.move left. Okay, so we need to implement move left. Pong early 70s, Pitfall early 80s. Oh, I was wrong. Okay, but still a decade apart. You're right. Okay, so for our map, we want to add in test move left. We create you. Okay, so Pong map move left. And now I actually want to set our index to be 1 probably. So before I move left, I'm going to do map dot current index equals 1. We move left, and now I expect you to be 0. This can't be a CI test because we're loading up context. All right, so let's go implement move left. Self.current index minus equals to 1. Now, what would be really interesting is, do I want to implement a wraparound system? Like, if I move right on the furthest to the right map, I start over at the beginning. I actually think that would be a lot of fun. So we can now do that in testing here. So if we move right off of the edge of the screen. So move right off edge. So what does that mean to us if we have our config? So we know how big our map is. So let's set our current index to be like the furthest right one. So map.current index is equal to config.map. Okay, that's a vector. So dot length -1. That will be we're furthest to the right now. We move right, and now I expect you to be at position 0. And I think, okay, did I actually test this? Cargo test, move left. Okay, that works. Let's now test move right off of edge. Okay, we failed because left is 2 and right is 1. We only have 2. So index should really be back to 0 again. So in move right, I guess what we want to do is self-index and assign this to if, now, do we have the full map? We don't. We need the config for this. So we have to have the config passed in. So config is u. Okay, so if config dot map dot length okay, so if self dot current index plus 1, if that's now going to be greater than or equal to map.length. I mean, I could even just set this to be equal to. I think that should be fine. So if you're equal to this length, then we want you to be 0. Else be self.current index plus 1 is what we're setting this up to be. Okay. Oh, that's cool. I have 6 errors now. Right, because we need to pass in the config to move right. Can I fix you? No, you don't have auto fix. Okay, so then you're happy again. Let's go ahead and run our test. Okay, we're good. We're moving off the right, and we just move back there. Now we move to the left. So test move left off edge. Right now, yes, but I could easily create a function that will randomly generate them. And that would work too. And then I can just I'm planning on just pasting that into the config. I don't know how I want to generate them yet. Okay, so left off edge, create our config, create our context, create the map. We're going to set our current map index to 0, which it already is. We're going to move left and pass it in the config. We expect that our current index should now be config.map.length -1. I know the original Pitfall did generate the entire map from a single byte counter. I know that it was a randomly generated map. I watched that GDC talk about the Pitfall creation of it, and it was fascinating. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be a little bit more intentional about it. Okay, so we have some errors now. Let's fix all these. So move left, config there, Okay, you're all happy now. Move left. Edge. Okay, so we have an underflow error. That's to be expected. Here we're going to do the exact same thing. So equals if, okay, so if self dot current index, if this is 0, then we want to set this to be config dot map dot length -1. Else, it'll just be self dot current index -1. Okay, and then if we come back to the main scene here, if player is off the edge of the screen to the left, we want to do self.map.move left. And then self.player.location.x equals config.resolutionx minus config.player width. Random isn't quite the right word. It was a polynomial counter, so basically a bunch of configuration options being ticked through. Oh, really? Okay. I always thought that was sort of a kind of a random number generator, like a pseudo random number generator. But I guess, yeah, interesting. I don't know enough about like those old game dev, like the stuff they had to do is super crazy to my mind. And I haven't like wrapped my mind, like my head around all the stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and cargo run this. So now I should be able to move left and right. So we'll move right all the way. And now we can just move forever throughout the map. So perfect. So now we can move. I can now create more map objects if I wanted to. So in here, we can add in another one, for example. And we can have pits. Now I don't have anything for like multiple pits yet, but we can just say like, hey, we want 2 pits and then we move through. So, my thought, like the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that I'm probably going to create some like maybe like a web app or something where I can just like click and choose the map and then have it export a JSON object for what that's going to look like. And then I'll just paste that into the config for right now, or maybe have it just auto generate the config and then add that into the map. Okay, so this entire thing is working exactly the way we want it to. There's one other thing that we wanted to do for the map change is I want to regenerate the trees slightly so we can tell that we're moving to different screens. The idea here is that we can shift the trees to the left and the right just ever so slightly. And then that happens when we just run trees new. So when we move in our map, when we move right and move left, we're storing all the tree trunks here. And the tree trunks is this new. We basically want to move left and move right. Regardless of this, we want to also do self.treetrunks equals treetrunks new. And we need a config and a context. Okay, so we do need a context here. And we want to do that here too. What do you return? You return a game result. So, oh, you return a game result. So we're gonna have to return a game result here now. Like that. That's going to make us need to update all of our tests over here. So we need to pass in you the context and unwrap you. Move left? I thought I updated that. Oh, to take in, okay. Text. Also taking that. All right. There is that. Problems. Okay, so for you, move left and right. We have our context here. Are you taking some vacation to work on this? I am. So my work decided to use a floating holiday to give everyone Wednesday off, and we already are getting Thursday and Friday off because Thanksgiving in the US. So I just decided, you know what? Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to take 2 days of vacation to get a full week off. And, well, and there we are. So context, and then we can question mark this. Okay, so if we do that, and then we run this, the tree should shift ever so slightly when I move off screen. Just like that. So it just gives a little bit more of an idea that we've changed locations. So when I move to this next screen with the pit in the center, it looks like a different screen now. So that's perfect. That's like a better way to show that. Perfect. And then I want to run all the tests. So warning, I'm running all the tests. Avert your eyes if you don't want to get flashed, because there are tons of like flashing lights, mostly like just bright white lights on the screen. So I'll let you know when it's done. And we're done. And all of them, Danny, you don't want to get flashed. It's okay. You can avert your eyes and you won't get flashed. But we're all good. All the tests are passing. That's all good. Let's go ahead and update, get rid of all these warnings. So field is never read. Height, we will need this eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, my control dot down here won't do it anymore. Oh, that's too bad. I have to manually fix the warnings now. Oh, wait, never mind. Okay, so pub height. Fine. You just don't get a height right now. Take that in. Oh, but the test required the height. Fine. We just won't do that right now. For you, we'll just not have our height right this second. Won't have you. Yeah. Things I do for you, Clippy. Okay, so we're not using active scene. Main scene does not need to be mutable. Perhaps you can create the windows, minimize shrunk, or even push to the back for the tests. Yeah, I don't know if I can. That would be really nice if I could. Okay. So there's all of that. That shouldn't like that all the tests should still work. I want to run them again. Close all these windows down and let's go push this to GitHub. All right, so we're in the correct branch. Rami Ska, hello. Okay, so what do we do here? We can move to the next screen, left and right. And I'll go ahead and push this out, and I'll also start a pull request to main. So this fixes 17, and what does that mean? We are moving the player through the map. The trees will update with each map change. We also wrap around the map. So wrap around the map left and right. So the world is infinite now. Yay, kind of, sort of, not really. We wrap around the map, and that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna create that pull request. We can go view that on GitHub. So you're 17. And so that's this issue right here. I'll link it. So there's these actions that we're waiting to finish here. So this is the pull request one. As soon as it's finished, we'll be able to pull that in, which I think is a perfect time for me to take a break, go get some more water, and then we'll come back and figure out what the next thing that we're going to work on is. So with that, I'm going to put in a marker to hopefully remember to stop this for the VOD.